Good evening and thanks for joining us in this special edition of the program, The Insight on Equinox Television, in our continuation of special coverage as far as the Northwest Regional Capital, BAMENDA, is concerned. This evening we shall be meeting with the government delegate to the BAMENDA City Council, Vincent Dumo. We shall equally be meeting with some stakeholders in the Northwest region of Cameroon in their respective domains. They will be telling us what is going on, what is happening, and what are some possible solutions to the problems raised by inhabitants in BAMENDA. We shall equally be meeting the president of the Northwest Lawyers Association, Noela, that is Barrister Bob Gahamoni. We shall equally in this edition of the program be meeting with political actors. Join me after this. Fresh from the Dixiat Games,
yes,
the National Olympic Games, the position of BAMENDA and their performance.
Well, I went to Ebolova. We went to Ebolova, and I'm the regional president of the Olympic Committee for the Northwest. We occupy the 8th position, which is, I can easily say, is the least or the worst we've done so far. But given the circumstances under which the children left BAMENDA, you can understand. However, we got one of the most prized trophy, that is the Fair Play Trophy, which is very, very important. Yes.
Okay. We are talking about the psychological impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you leave a house that is almost burning, I think it is enough reason for the performance not to be very good, given that sports is something to do with psychology, with your mind, and all those kinds of things. They play a lot of roles as far as sports is concerned. But having said that, I think Dixiat is like the Olympics of Cameroon, and the most important aspect of Olympics is participation and fair play. So we won the Fair Play Trophy, and we participated. That's very important.
Yes, talking about events in BAMENDA, you were going to Ebolova, you left the home burning behind. Now, how can you describe what you saw in BAMENDA? You as the government delegate, some of the edifices that are put in place destroyed. And how can you describe it?
Yes, that is the unfortunate situation. We have problems, difficulties, the roads, infrastructure, and all those kinds of problems that in any case are even things that happen elsewhere in Cameroon. But in order to request for more things or to even protest, I don't think you need to destroy the little that you have. That is the issue here. That is the conversation we have in BAMENDA here. For people to know exactly how to channel their anger, how to complain to government that this is not working well. It is not by burning. And you know that the present crisis was started by the lawyers and the teachers. And to the best of my recollection, I've not seen any lawyer nor teacher causing the kinds of destruction that took place here in BAMENDA. Therefore means that we need to refocus our attention on what our problems and look for solutions towards solving them. And that is that. I mean, we have a government that is for all Cameroonians. And the simple fact about it is that we cannot live in a society like we have no laws, like we have nobody to control us. I've often said that where the rights of A end, that is where those of B start. So if you take upon yourself to move out to air your anger over issues and you destroy property that belongs to all of us, I think it can only bring in more sufferings to the population.
Yeah. But how can you react to the revendication of what some of the citizens are saying? It started when Mancho, a certain animator, Mancho BBC, said there were bad roads, absence of water, limited access to water. Are their revendications really, are they true? Do you recognize some of this?
No, it is normal that when you live in a society like Bamenda, even I myself, when I drive between here and Blue Moon, which is where my parents' compound is, or when I move from here to hospital, I know that the situation of roads is not the best as far as Bamenda is concerned. What I'm simply saying here is that, yes, the problems exist. We should look but for means to be able to solve those problems, address your grievances to the right quarters in such a manner that they understand exactly what you want. When you talk about the Mancho BBC, he came up, started with the issue of roads, issues of water supply, and then ended up with Southern Cameroons and Federation and all those kind of things. I don't think those issues have any relationship. And if you want to go by the issue of roads in town here, yes, there is definitely a problem of roads infrastructure because the roads here were done in 1982. Over the years, they've degraded to a certain level, especially as the growth in the town has been exponential to a certain extent where if in 1982-85 you had about maybe 20 vehicles circulating within an hour within a certain area, now you have more than 500 vehicles, which means that the growth of the traffic has increased tremendously. And added to the fact that these very burnings that they are burning the streets now also were perpetuated in the 90s during the issues of democracy in this country. So, yes, there is a problem of roads. And I think at this particular moment, government is addressing the issues. Since I came to Bamenda as government delegate in 2009, we've added about 20 kilometers of inner city roads. You just need to drive by Atuazri, or what they call commonly Metakwata, inside. You need to pass through Ntambak, or what they call commonly Old Town. You go to Megap around Nkwen Mile, 2 Mile, and so on. You realize that we've done routes. Even within the budget of the Bamenda City Council, we have what we call triennial contracts of tarring about 2 kilometers of road per subdivisional council every year. And that has already started. Right now, you go to Mulang, you find roads. You go to just this neighborhood, you realize that this neighborhood around end of Tajiare, there's a project going on of tarring about 2-3 kilometers of roads. You go to Nkwen around Foncha Street, you find a tar road from Foncha Street through Virgin Land, GTH, Government Technical High School, and coming out at mile, almost at around Guinness Nkwen. And these projects are starting in 2017. We embark on the next set of projects. These are things that are done with the internal budget of the city council.
So like that of hospital runabout.
Hospital runabout. The good news about it is that the government tendered the project. There's a project for a road from Checkpoint through to the new road here around the junction of Amu Mezam, through to Finance Junction, Gang Junctions, Veterinary Junction, T Junction, Hospital Runabout, Food Market, Sonak Street, back to Veterinary Junction. And it's going to be on a dual carriageway. I don't know why I understand dual carriageway. It means that you have just like Commercial Avenue. And then added to that...
Meaning that properties will be destroyed along the road?
Not so much, because under normal circumstances, you build giving setbacks. The setbacks that have been provided are good enough for us to have a road of about 18 meters all over these areas. Very few property will be destroyed. And in addition to that, just for this budget of 2017, what I've seen so far is that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has provided something like 900 million francs for us to continue with the road below Foncha through Mulang and eventually even arrive the town and the old city council junction. These are steps that are being taken, and they need patience. You need a lot of patience to be able to do all these kinds of things. And then concerning the issue of the complaint about trenches that were done by the Chinese company giving us water here, it is really, really ridiculous and far-fetched for anybody to complain when there's a contract of about 15 billion francs to supply the whole of Bamenda and even beyond with water that will make sure that the population has water all through the year for the next 30 years. And everybody knows that when you're carrying out a project, like digging a road, planting pipes for water project, you must be uncomfortable for a certain time. It is only when you are through with that job that you do all the finishings, refill the trenches, and make the situation comfortable. I think we're being extremely impatient in Bamenda here. For that matter, you would realize that this very Chinese company is carrying out this project in 8 other towns, apart from Bamenda, including Bafoussam just by the side here. You need to go to Bafoussam and see what the situation is there. When they came here, I gave them very, very stringent measures. They had to dig trenches. As a matter of fact, according to their contract, they were supposed to have finished planting all the pipes, test them before filling the trenches to render the road comfortable. But here in Bamenda, I told them that they were working on certain areas like Commercial Avenue, which is used for feasts like 20th May and all those kinds of things. I say you cannot allow Commercial Avenue the state at which it finds itself. And so they exceptionally accepted to refill the trenches before even doing the testing. So when you carry out these kinds of projects in a municipality and you only have negative reports, it is very unfortunate, especially as it is not happening only in Bamenda here. A few months ago, there was the structural problems of garbage collection in town here.
I was coming to that because you don't have Izakam.
Yes, I didn't have Izakam, but from 2017 we're going to have Izakam. But you agree with me that even your TV station reported on the very poor situation of garbage collection in Douala, the same thing in Yaoundé. All the TV stations, CRTV, everybody, they reported about that problem. Newspapers reported about that problem. But no way did you find anybody throwing an accusing finger on the government delegate of those areas.
Because those areas have Izakam. And there was a problem with Izakam.
If Izakam, the issue is, if Izakam can have problems, for God's sake, if Izakam can have problems, a specialized company for cleaning, if Izakam can have problems,
it was not a technical problem anyway.
Whatever it is, what I'm simply saying here is that they had problems of garbage collection in Yaoundé, Douala, and other towns. Nobody accused the government delegate the way my name was. I was virtually undressed in the public, social media for continuously 3 months. It's true, we need to criticize, but criticize positively. No way to apportion blame. About a week ago, just at the peak of the crisis that took place here in Bamenda last Thursday, some of your reporters went to the market, and people were complaining. You see somebody who probably is a subtenant paying about 50 to 75,000 francs for one shed.
That's for 1 year or 1 month?
For a month, to a tenant of the city council. What happens is that 75% of our tenants give out their sheds and collect between 50 and 75,000 francs a month, the law says that a shed within the market year should be between 20,001 francs to 25,000 francs. And we apply just that law to put in the minimum. And the traders organize themselves and make a strike against that action. And these are the very traders. One of them was even talking about the state of the markets. If you occupy a market shed and you are paying 10,000 francs in the case of the main market and food market, and 7,000 francs in the case of Tarinkun market and Kwen markets. If you're paying that amount of money, how much do you think you make monthly for us to be able to carry out repairs effectively? Another example, the law says that the tolls for these people who come and sell spontaneously and go away is between 100 and 500 francs. We are charging 100 francs here. Those guys are protesting that they are paying too much. I take a market like Kwen. Just the garbage, to remove garbage from Kwen market every month is worth at least 5 million francs. To remove the garbage from Kwen market. The tolls collected from Kwen market every month. And this garbage is produced by those who come from the rural areas to sell things like bananas, pineapples, and so on and so forth. That generates a lot of garbage. We collect 600,000 francs. Go and ask these people, why is the town dirty? They'll tell you that it's Numu who is not cleaning the town. But they forget that the money that you pay, we collect from you, is used to carry out those things. I'm just giving you these particular statistics for the population to understand exactly where we're coming from. I say for a market, Kwen market, 600,000 francs or even less monthly for tolls. The people who generate the garbage, they pay 600,000 francs. But we spend 5 million francs. Where does the rest of the money come from? You want streets. Where do we get money from? Under normal circumstances, the markets in BAMENDA, within the BAMENDA City Council, should generate at least a billion francs every year. But I bet you I don't generate up to half of that amount. And you see where the problems come in. For a typical market, every year we'll have to provide fire safety equipment. These are things that most of them don't even realize that they exist.
But maybe, Mr. Government Delegate,
yes?
you have not been able to communicate, to sensitize them.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. The communication is just part of our duties. But I'll ask you a question here. Somebody who has been operating a shed for about 20 years now. 20 years ago, that person was buying a liter of petrol for how much? Maybe about 250 francs, 300 francs. That very person is buying it for now 630 francs a month. You don't need communication for people to know that times have evolved. And you don't need communication for people to know that to pay taxes is what is required for you to develop a particular area.
What about your clients? That's clients of the city council who go and re-rent some of these shops. Have you been able to because the problem seems to come when clients...
Yes, our tenants, they sublet. It's a problem that we have raised so many times. And you know, some of these things cannot be handled exclusively by the city council. You know, there is an administrative authority, there is the laws, there are the laws and all those kind of things. But we're presently working on that, to be able to have direct contact with the person who is running the shed. So within, maybe by 2017, we will actually go into that kind of fight when we would have removed one of the biggest problems that was occupying us all this time, that is cleaning of the city. Now that Isakam is coming, we'll have more time to concentrate on income generating, and those are problems that we'll solve. Because when we deal directly with the people running the sheds, I think the conversation is a lot better. Yes. The people who are posing all the resistance towards us are those tenants are us who are subletting. So that's something that we'll have to look into.
So you've made two major announcements during this interview. Isaka will be coming in 2017.
Absolutely.
Very soon there will be the construction of dual carriages in town.
That is, the contracts are under analysis now within the Ministry of Public Works, and it is a foregone conclusion. And one other issue is that we have to complete the Moulin Road. And one other good news is that the French debt relief program, CDB in French, BAMENDA is eligible for their third phase. Even if it comes in 4 years, we may by that time have covered all the road networks in BAMENDA, and things will happen. No doubt there's a problem presently, but we'll have to learn to be patient for government to solve our problems. For all of us to sit down in the same table, dialogue, and find out a solution to our problems. Yes.
So it is proper that with the developments, because you remember lawyers first launched their sit-in strike and eventually took it to a street demonstration, peaceful demonstration. And thereafter the teachers who had been doing their negotiations for a very long period with government now followed us with a strike. And then other people, not with prior identification, also rose up to take advantage of the ice that had been broken by the lawyers. And with that, the objective which the lawyers originally set, independent of teachers, and the objective that the teachers set, independent of lawyers, followed by the objectives of other groups like the business community talking about arbitrary taxation and stuff like that. The youths who are graduates and now tied to riding Okada, being by Amsalam, they raise their own about unemployment. But there's a common thread that runs through this, their problems. The fact that they are, Southern Cameroonians who have come to be tagged with the appellation Anglophones, that it's a peculiar treatment of that group of people in Cameroon, which leads to my adoption of the concept of Anglophones have been made the lesser citizens of Cameroon. From that perspective, you would see that with the common ground of the identity of Southern Cameroon, the purpose of the strike, which is now becoming a huge across-the-board strike, completely not in the hands of lawyers or teachers exclusively anymore. The objective and the way it should be dealt with has changed. We're now talking, in fact, the debate has risen to the point where even the invitation to government that I made in the Constitutional Council way back on the 12th of July, that all these problems of lawyers arise from the fact that in Fumban there was never a conclusive constitutional talk, and government has mischievously maneuvered its way to this point without the establishment of an act of union between Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroon, which were the things that were projected during the run-up to the independence of Southern Cameroon, which came well after that of the Republic of Cameroon. So the Republic of Cameroon has conducted. We will be having, because there has been a development which has, brought many more groups on board. And it has also had the effect of changing the global objective of the sum total of different groups' strike, which is now striking the common chord, which is, why should this happen only to Southern Cameroonians? And is it legal? Is it legitimate? The answer that is coming from Southern Cameroonians within Cameroon is no. This is reinforced by an unprecedented unity of purpose in Southern Cameroonians in the diaspora. So you can say that the Southern Cameroon's nation has awoken from a suppression-driven slumber, and are now speaking as one person. Agreed, if you take each of those groups that have come on board in isolation and answer their question without pretending not to recognize that they are anchored on the predicament of each of those groups in the fact that there has never been an act of union between the Republic of Cameroon and Southern Cameroon. That is a constitutional failure. And after you've done the run through all those groups, you put the results together, it's going to have the same effect. The changes that have taken place, and the changes that have taken place, and my advice that I have given out is that the various groups should come together and, discuss how not to lose focus. They could pursue both the individual group agenda as well as pursue the emergent global agenda. For me, that's a pragmatic approach to doing things. For example, lawyers have had a lot of their projects truncated because the government has banned the activities of our constituent associations of the common law movement. With that and the carnage that is being perpetrated on the population of Southern Cameroon, we do not want to be foolhardy and expose our members to be maimed and killed by the security forces of La République du Cameroon, who is feigning to be interested in dialogue, but at the same time unleashing its security forces in the Southern Cameroon as if it is a war theater. If you see the gory pictures of children killed and maimed, girls raped, So many have actually disappeared. Yet the government is talking. We want dialogue. In fact, one of the street boy magistrates, not magistrate, one of the street boy ministers, Atanganji Paul.
Why do you call him street boy?
From his conduct. From his conduct. He's just acting as one of the gangsters in the street. How does a minister go on television and run his mouth the way he did, virtually passing death sentences on the people who lead the civil society organizations like myself? In fact, I have confirmed testimony from 2 different sources at different locations. When Atanganji Paul announced that if they cannot pick Bobga up, they should gun him down. Another source, which was discussing the project while a nephew of mine was sitting somewhere close by and eavesdropped, was that they had recruited private militia to hit me at sight, because if I'm taken off the earth, the problems would be solved.
That was during the strike in Boya?
No, the one in BAMENDA.
Okay.
Yes. And you will see corroboration of that in the CRTV publication some weeks back, when they put my name as Maître Bobga, le leader des grévistes. I mean, this is not just the lawyers striking, but all the striking groups. Honestly, we had not set up a coalition that somebody could say that Bobga had been elected the leader of the striking groups. So this was a construction to give a bad name to a dog and hang it, as we say. So for a minister who is supposed to operate in accordance with the rule of law and with good conscience, to transform ordinary armless citizens into game that can be gunned down and taken off the face of the earth. I wonder what screening such a person might have gone through to become a minister. There was definitely a problem in evaluating and choosing him, except that he is the commander-in-chief of the hit squad of the government, and that would be very unfortunate.
Okay, so what you are saying is that the strike action is the calling of the strike is still far-fetched.
We have not called off the strike, we have not suspended it. And let me tell you, government is incapable of calling off a strike that they did not call. One thing we have done is that we have maintained our position since we called the inaugural conference of the common law lawyers on May 9th, 2015. We did not only pass resolutions that were diagnostic of our problems as common law lawyers, we made propositions of new direction to correct the situation. In effect, we opened the doors wide to dialogue with government. And government, in what I find very strange, just kept quiet until from the 6th of October 2016, that's well beyond 1 year after May 9th, 2015, we started sending communiques now to the head of state. Because our suspicion was that his ministers, either they were mischievous, they didn't want to tell the head of state the truth, or they were making capital out of silence by pretending that there is a crisis they are managing and collecting money for that and building their retirement that will never come. Because all of them, they continue to be recycled. When there's a cabinet reshuffle here, you will find ministers will be shifted aside and they go to the old stock like manure and bring them and take the ones who have just recently been removed and put in parastatals as chairman, where the budget is almost like the budget of a ministry. So the Cameroon establishment is an Alibaba group that operates as predators on the citizens. Now, as I say, the disposition of lawyers in particular, and I can say, subject to correction, the teachers, is that the striking population is open to dialogue. But how does dialogue work? It's a question of everybody coming to the dialogue table with his own point of view. And through the exchanges, because when you talk, as we are talking now, you get to understand deeper and wider what my concerns are, rather than when I send a simple correspondence to you. Because those correspondence bear just broad strokes of the problems. The detailed analysis take place when we exchange discussion. But see what the government is doing. The government announces to the world that they are prepared for dialogue. They insist on dialogue. But for them to move to the dialogue table, they set parameters that are convenient for them.
So it's not a win-win, it's a win-loss?
It's a win-loss that they are prescribing, because they tell us who have been on strike for now getting to 3 months that call off the strike before we sit down and discuss. We are calling off the strike that we have gained what? Why does government want to stand on a high pedestal and put us on our buttocks on the ground to negotiate with us? The symmetry is that the discussion will be on a steep slope. Our points will never climb up to the government, and that of the government will come like boulders and crush us. That is why we say we should be on the level ground, so that when we send our point and they send their point, they will be going at equal speed, and we'll be able to create a common ground. Right. Now, Alhaji Baba had been my client in other occasions, but this time around we did not go for lawyer-client business. We went to have an unpaid discussion in the public interest, where we, the lawyers and other groups, are in a conflictual situation with government over the predicament of the common law, the Anglophone education subsystem. For those who know me, and I don't blame those who might have some doubts, because Cameroon is known for its corruption index the world over. The fact is that the only capital I've accumulated in my 28 years of legal practice in this country is my integrity. If I were the cheap type who go for money, I should have had a lot of money, not even from Alhaji Baba, but from this government.
Okay, so why did he call you? Why did he call
you? Alhaji Baba called me as somebody he knows and from what he declared upon the invitation of the President of the Republic, that can you meet this Barrister Bobga, whom I have reports is the main leader of the lawyers, and find out exactly what the lawyers' problems are, because all government emissaries going to Bamenda come back and present a soft report to me. That is that the problem is not as big as they think it's being solved. Yet, as soon as they finish reporting to me, I see fire in Bamenda. So what can you do as an elite of the Northwest to get this gentleman reveal through you to me exactly what their problems are? A lot of people have misgivings about Alhaji Baba. I, who is seated here, I had embattled him when Mboskuda was being formed, and he had his own issues with. But he approached me later, and I discovered that he's an ordinary citizen who will have problems of property and other things. And as an employer of a huge group of people, he's bound to have issues with employment. And as a lawyer, I'm on oath not to pass judgment on my clients or other people's clients. So I always keep an open mind. When he approached me, and now on this issue, I now said, well, I'm willing to discuss with you, but not as Bobga. I am only ready to discuss with you with a group of people with whom we are working, because this is not a private business of Bobga. It's not a file in my office. It is the problems of common law lawyers, the problem of Anglophone university lecturers in the 2 Anglo-Saxon universities. It is the problem of teachers of secondary education, primary education, traders, and so on and so forth. But the people we started working with and even preparing to have a coalition at the time were teachers and these university professors and traders. So I'm going to see at this short notice the leaders of these groups that I can call, and we come there, because I cannot come alone. What came out of that meeting were a communique and a memoranda. The communique was written by us, the lawyers, which recapitulated our moves from May 9th, 2015, up to the last communique that we sent to the presidency. And the discussion, particularly the discussions we had with the Prime Minister when he came here and pretended that he was having dialogue with us. Meanwhile, he was using some funny method. It starts off on each issue as if he's opening up to listening to us, and then closes us up by saying that it cannot be done. And he did that for one issue to the other. And of course, as a Christian, I was meditating as I was discussing with him, because to me, it appeared to be an occultic exercise to hypnotize us to fall into their trap, but they failed. Because the forces of darkness never stands the force of light.
So you are communicating?
Our communique and
to the presidency?
Yes, I am sure it did, because we finished at 2:30 the following day. We arrived on Sunday, and 2:30 a.m. on Monday, that's when we finished writing the 2 documents. I and the president of Manu Lawyers, we prepared the memorandum, the communique for the lawyers, and Dr. Fontaine, Secretary General of Sines, prepared the memo for Sines and the secondary school teachers and primary school teachers. And he even made some points on behalf of the traders and other groups. Alhaji Baba, in front of me, in front of all of us, dispatched a driver and a worker with the mail to Yaoundé at that 2:30. In fact, we took advantage, because we didn't want to sleep there. We took advantage and we joined the vehicle that was going to Yaoundé, and they dropped us in Bamenda. Because he had already put one of his senior staff on standby in Yaoundé to collect the mail and take straight to the presidency. He did not add his own point, just those 2 documents. And those documents speak for themselves. Now, there's been a lot of rumor that people went there to collect money.
That name is synonymous to money.
Yes. It is a very sad situation that people will live off speculation rather than do findings. In fact, people very close to me went onto social media and were doing posts in the direction of the rumor. None of them ever called me. Mr. Bobga, we hear this thing. Is it true or false? To get the answer that I am giving you now, which is quite unfortunate. But I know these are exceptional times and people are really very, very emotional and excited. They could make those errors. But the truth about it is that we didn't go there for a commercial adventure. We went there to discuss a public issue that is rocking this country. Government's insensitivity and the continuation of the discord would not leave any businessman unperturbed. And that is why I think that Alhaji Baba embraced the invitation from the head of state to invite us, to tell him our position. And even though we had communicated through secured means to the presidency these same complaints, we took advantage of the opportunity, the pathway created by Alhaji Baba, to send just another time the same complaint we have been sending without diluting it. And even though from their political position they said we should not discuss federalism, I insisted and I put federalism there. That federalism was never even established, but it was a means that could have saved this problem. And to underscore this point, we made sure it was recorded by your colleagues of Franz Venkat. If there was anything secret or sacred, we would never have taken Franz Venkat there, because Franz Venkat even has a wider audience than most of our media in Cameroon. That is the level of our transparency. And maybe some unscrupulous people within the government circles might be sponsoring this rumor. But I tell you, we are resolute that we are not yet suspending or calling off the strike until government takes a concrete move to demonstrate its good faith towards dialogue.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The strike action that took place in Bamenda, which is the headquarters of the northwest region of Cameroon, definitely paralyzed activities.
Well, I, as the president of the credit union movement, which is a grassroots movement, I don't want to start from just paralyzation of activities. I want to say that the members are usually the biggest asset we have in our network. So I would want to start by extending my condolences to all the members of the various credit unions and the various families who were affected not only by the most recent events, because in the Eseka train derailment we lost some members, in the Boko Haram in the north we lost some members, and then we've lost some other members before the most recent events that we are talking. So my first concern is about all these members, to which I express my deepest condolences to their families. Coming now back to the activities, because we don't have members, we don't have activities. I must tell you that Cameroon, as you know, is Cameroon Cooperative Credit Union League. That means it's national, it's everywhere. Unlike a body, anything that happens to any part of that body affects the whole setup. That is to tell you that we cannot pretend to be indifferent that even though these activities were basically in the two regions of Cameroon, that means they are in 4 regions, they didn't affect Kamkul. That cannot be the point. So they definitely affected Kamkul. What we are here now thinking about is not so much about how they affected Kamkul, but more about the way forward, because challenges exist everywhere. And once those challenges come, we should look for the solutions. And of course, as you know, the solutions have to pass through creating the enabling environment. This enabling environment is bringing all the actors together. We are also involved, because if you look at any feeling of people not being very happy, most often there is an economic interpretation of it, which means that in trying to create the situation for people to feel happy, whether they are Anglophones or Francophones, we have to have these economic operators come to impact on their lives, because everywhere else, take our brothers in the US, in France, in Germany, in the UK, and all of that, when people feel happy, it's also because the private sector is able to impact on their life. So here, I'm thinking more now about what do we bring onto the table, so that along the other conditions of making a secure environment, making a peaceful environment, making an acceptable environment, people are also economically empowered. That's the way we are.
Have you met with the government so far? Have they approached you as an economic operator so far for a possible solution?
No, we have always been talking with all the various arms of government. In fact, when I mean government here, I mean that even the councils are that's local government. And you know that most of the council activities are financed through the credit unions. So if we are meeting with councillors, meeting with mayors, meeting with all the administration, and we say we're not meeting with government, that is not possible. So we are meeting. Secondly, as a law-abiding institution with a national character existing for all the years that you know, with our international reputation, government uses us in many projects in order to impact the lives of the rural poor. For example, we have this project through Minipat, whereby agricultural loans are given virtually at the interest free to help people do agriculture as a business. We have other projects with the Minade, and with our supervisory ministry, which is the Ministry of Finance, you have this project which is called the Inclusive Finance. If all of tend to say we are not dealing with the government, but dealing with the government not in the political context, because the credit union is an apolitical structure, and we deal with government in exploring the ways on how to impact and improve on the lives of our members. And when you improve on the lives of our members, and for your information, Kamkul Network today, on a multiplier effect, impacts on the lives of not less than 3 million Cameroonians. So you see, we are not a negligible force in all of this.
But definitely you have some challenges.
Definitely, we have challenges, because if I started by talking about events that happen, for example, in the north, when the Boko Haram attacks, you are not definitely, the fact is that our members in that part of Cameroon who took loans to be able to do business across in Nigeria, that flow is restricted. It definitely doesn't work. If I leave that one, I take even the train incident. When the traffic between Yaoundé and Douala is halted, you know Douala is the economic capital. Obviously, our members who are found in that part, they have issues getting their goods and so on, and the loans they have contracted from the credit unions run into issues. If I take now the Anglophone regions and the issues that we have, you realize that just before those things came up, there were people, our members, who took loans. Some had to go to Dubai to stock for Xmas, some had to just do local businesses. And with the events and with the environment not being the way it was, definitely it affected us. And when it affects us in that particular situation, we look at a holistic situation. That's exactly how I'm thinking now, because in credit union we talk money, and when you talk money, if I take a million franc, I'm not able to make out how much of in the million or the color of the million that has been deposited by a Betty man from that which has been deposited by somebody from Kambe, or the one that has been deposited by a Bamileke as opposed to a Nordis, or the one that has been deposited in a global sense by a Francophone as opposed to an Anglophone. I can't be able to make that distinction, but I look at this as credit union members who are Cameroonians, but who have to have the required secured environment which is enabling. And the first person to enable the environment, of course, is the government, because the government is the father of the land.
So definitely we can say say today that after the strike action, economic activities in Bamenda, to be precise, has been paralyzed. The rate of turnover could be low this period.
I don't want to talk about paralyzed. I want to talk about challenges, because you need to agree with me that a year is made up of 12 months. And then, so from January right to December is our running period, our calendar period. So we've had actually the perturbation of normal activities, because I don't want to talk micro and macro, because let me tell you that we have some of our members who deal in foods, some who did in medical equipment, some who deal in the big businesses. As long as this environment are difficult in terms of civil situation that is not very wonderful, one way or the other, there would be a disturbance. For example, if cars are not running, the buyer and seller will not be able to get the vegetables to come to sell. But the people, the wine seller in the quarters will still be doing business. I'm therefore going to see that there is a disturbance or disruption of normal business, but it's not a complete disruption, because somebody somewhere in the quarter is still doing something. So that's why we are saying that we look at the global picture, and the global picture remains the one of saying we had challenges. Let there be dialogue. And this dialogue simply means the causes are so many, because I have said from an economic perspective, I'll tell you that the common man would think about what affects his life directly. At the end of the day, it boils down to that. Because whatever is the nature of where you are, at the end of the day, when you retire in the evening with your family, your child, who doesn't even know what is happening, wants to know whether he or she is able to have health, is able to have education, is able to have food, is able to now go to school and pay the school fees and all of that. So that's why we are saying that in as much as there are other things which are maybe more important, we maintain that as economic operators, we should be able to contribute to helping the people have the resources. Our own resources are not donations. Our resources are mutual effort put by people saving their money, and then they can loan and pay back. That's the way we think we can be part of it. But we also have another part to play, which is the part of education. Like I've said, if you see the Kamkul network, the first credit union was formed in 1963. That was in Ginicom. And from 1963, when they put the first umbrella part, it was at the time called the West Cameroon Cooperative Credit Union League. That was before I was born. But when the Cameroons now moved together and decided, after the events, historical events linking the East and the West, the name moved. That was still before I was born. The name now moved to Cameroon Cooperative Credit Union from West Cameroon. That means that I have a duty to look holistic, national, and in that national, I have to take into consideration the sensitivities of all my people. That is why, for example, I know that what I have to put in place for the members who are in the north has to take into consideration the fact that they have an environment that is facing Boko Haram. That's why if I come to Bamenda, it's an Anglophone part of Cameroon, I know that there are issues that are specific to the Anglophone part of Cameroon. If I even remain in the Anglophone part of Cameroon and I go to Nwa, it is not the same like Bamenda, even though it's still Anglophone, because in Nwa, it is easier for somebody in Nwa to take on foot 15 minutes and be in Nigeria than to come back to normal Cameroon, which is Kumbu, for example, which may be 2 days on the bad route. So this is the way we function, and we think that in this global picture, there should be a reasonable, consensual approach to looking at specific interests.
And above all, there should be security, because when there's security, economic activities boom.
Of course, and when we talk security in our context, we look at security as an individual responsibility in the first place, because there's no way to imagine that the state can have the resources to place a policeman in every home or a gendarme on every street and so on. So the first security is a security contributed by the members, by the way they go around. That's why in situations like the unfortunate challenges that we've been talking about, you agree that what makes the environment secure for our credit union would not be the presence of any other external person, but it would be that the members know this thing belongs to you. This is your thing. If you have it destroyed, you will not have it again. So that's why we join our heads and our hands and our hearts to also contribute to say that let us, in whatever we do, make sure that we remain as peaceful as possible, as secured as possible, but the overall duty of security lies with the government.
After listening to these key actors in the northwest region of Cameroon, you must have noticed that the actors, they know the subject matter in their domain very well. All we hope is that what we've discussed today in this edition of the program, there will be solutions that will be coming up maybe in the short run and some of them in the long run. That was it for the program. Signing out from the northwest regional capital, BAMENDA. For Ansin Chanji and Innocent Abega, take our rendezvous next week.